guys, welcome back to another episode of Executive Conversations. I am your host, Maiva Cifuentes. In this podcast, I like to interview marketing leaders and go-to-market leaders about the background, what is going on in behind the scenes of the actual marketing execution, what it takes to get things across the line, how do executives get confused about marketing things, and how we bring clarity to them so we can actually get things done. If you do enjoy this topic and this episode, please do give it a like. Please subscribe because I interview marketing leaders weekly, and share with a friend who might find this useful. Today, my lovely guest is Natalie Naik, who is head of marketing at a Sharp Launch, which is a marketing platform for commercial real estate. And we have a lot to dive into today. I'm really excited. Hi, Natalie.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I'm glad to have you. Welcome. First of all, I want to congratulate you in public for your new job at Sharp Launch.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I've been there 5 or 6 weeks, so just getting to grips with it, but enjoying it a lot.
Yeah, so I would love to dive into that, but first, we did have something that we wanted to talk about a little bit more specific about it was your last role, right? That we want to dive
Right.
into. And with Sharp Launch, this is your first head of role?
Yeah, I would say I've been a pseudo head of marketing, but we'll get into that. But yeah, it's my first kind of head of job title. Yeah.
Officially. That's
Yeah.
huge. Amazing.
Yeah, I'm excited. Yeah. It's
Um,
a big milestone for me to tick off. So yeah.
yeah. So you're saying you were a pseudo head of because in your last role you were mentioning to me you actually started the B2B marketing function.
Yeah. I think what was quite significant about that role was that it was a company that had already been around for quite a few years, but as a pure D2C business. And so when I joined the business, it was to establish the B2B marketing function from scratch. And there had been no B2B marketing hires before that. So that's why I say because in the company, it was very kind of split down the middle. It was the D2C people and B2B people. And so I kind of had full responsibility, authority over, the B2B commercial side of things. And in that role, I kind of acted like the head of that section and had very little to do with the D2C marketers, actually. But it was really challenging because before me, it had only been salespeople, just kind of being scrappy, hustling, figuring out what worked, what didn't. And so there was nothing formalized, and they were all just kind of doing their own thing and different markets, different kinds of models for selling. And yeah, it was a bit of a mess. And so when I came in, it was really basically to formalize the whole kind of commercial output, I guess.
Did you get any reports?
I did later on, about 6 months in, I did a digital marketing.
So you came in, everybody's just in sales, and you're by yourself to form this. So it's not only actually doing things, but probably a lot of not only educating upwards, but all of those salespeople.
100%. And that was the most challenging thing because all of the leadership were real like D2C heads and like they built this company. It was pure kind of consumer play. Even my boss at the time, the VP of marketing, who was the best boss I've ever had, was not a B2B marketer. And I actually met him on a pavilion course where he was trying to learn about B2B marketing, basically. And so that was challenging. I mean, he had full trust in me, but it was very difficult as we went through to then both get buy-in from the senior leadership because they just couldn't really get their head around why B2B was so different to D2C marketing and like why the same KPIs were not going to work or the same kind of plays were not going to work. But then also trying to create quite formal, structured processes and get the salespeople or the account management team on board and have them understand why it did have to be that way. And I'd come with all this experience from a previous industry, and what I was saying wasn't just made up and to suit me. So that was quite tricky. It was a lot of education in those first 6 months. Yeah.
What do you like? You came in there and you had to actually convince them that KPIs were different. What was the impression that they had initially?
Yeah. Well, I think there was a lot of, if we put X in, then we'll get X out, which might work, on a paid LinkedIn campaign or PPC Google ads for a consumer product. And it was working very well. Like the performance marketing on the D2C side was really successful. And it was hard to explain to them that because the buying cycles are so long, they were like up to 2 years sometimes, because our buyer was university leadership, that just wasn't going to work. You're not going to see results from a paid LinkedIn campaign, maybe not till next year, but you also have to do 25 other things in the meantime to actually see anything happen.
Yeah.
And so it was really difficult to explain to them that, yes, we can do paid LinkedIn things and it might move the needle, but it's not as easy as saying, put X in and we'll get this many leads and it will convert into X deals.
What channels did you end up working on?
Events, conferences, and our own events. That seemed to be the most significant thing. We did account-based marketing, kind of really pairing up with the sales team. So lots of like outbound, cold outbound, lead nurturing, that kind of thing. But it was mostly kind of email, LinkedIn. And then the rest was purely organic, lots of referrals and getting the sales team to just go on campus and meet people.
Right, because this was ed tech.
Ed tech, yeah. The buyers were universities, yeah.
And so the D2C version, who were you selling to?
Individual students.
Students, and then you're selling to universities.
Yeah.
So you had to come in, you had to convince them that money in is not going to equal money out. But that's kind of a scary position to put yourself in as well, where you're like, you just have to trust me.
Yeah.
Just trust me. Like, how did you frame that to get their buy-in?
Yeah, I actually taking the role was actually a bit naive because I didn't quite grasp how little B2B minded everyone would be. And at the same time, so I took on that role, but at the same time, I was also trying to open a new revenue stream for a different model, B2B2C, in a new market, the US, which is, really easy, small market to get into grips with. So that was really challenging. And I was very lucky that I had the leadership that I did at the time, who was the VP of marketing, who really backed me, was a big cheerleader, and really helped me understand how to communicate things to senior leadership. So like the chief strategy officer, chief growth officer kind of changed throughout the time I was there, and then the CEO, how to communicate to them and how to really understand what they wanted to hear, and therefore,
Mhm.
leverage that to be able to get the things that I needed.
What things during that
Mm.
training or that experience did you learn that you didn't know before?
Mm. Um, Less is more, actually. I
Mm.
think when you're on that cusp of like junior to early senior role, it's so easy to just think like, oh, I'll give everyone all the information and then they can just make up their mind. And actually, it's more about, okay, the CEO is going to get 55 Slacks in the next 2 hours. What can I say in 3 bullet points that's going to make him take some action or give me the green light? And that was definitely what I learned from him. Like, what's the minimal amount of information you can give someone to help them make a decision? And and that's always the advice that I give to people that I manage now as well.
Yeah, I've seen that. I don't know if you know the SEO MBA by Tom Critchlow.
I haven't.
So he has this course within that called Executive Presence. It's for SEOs,
Mm,
which I think more SEOs need to take. But basically, he says if you're presenting to the C-suite, you should be able to present everything in 5 slides. And then anything beyond that is just appendix in case they're like, what about this data? And then you kind of have to think ahead about what kind of questions they're going to be asking.
definitely. Yeah, that's part of the advice that I give people. It's like, give them the minimum amount of information and they know then what to dig into, and just be prepared that you're going to have to expand
Yeah.
on that. Yeah.
But that's really, really tricky to boil it down to the 3 most important bullet points or the 5 most important slides. That takes some practice or some
Right.
framework. Like how do you approach it?
Mm. I'm sure I did use a framework at one point in time. I think number one is context. Like, why are you talking about this? Why is it important right now? Number two is what you're actually going to do. What are you hoping to do? What do you need from me? And put that as early on as possible. So they're not sitting there thinking, okay, why are you telling me this information?
Yeah.
And then the last one will be kind of the results you expect or next steps or the follow-up.
Right. So context, why are we talking about this right now?
Mm-hmm.
Why do I need to be here?
Why do I care about this?
And then what am I expecting from this? What about like the plan or the reasoning, the data behind it? Where do you fit that in?
I guess that would be in the follow-up. And it depends how much the person in leadership really cares about that or not. I work with both. I worked with someone who's just like, yeah, sounds great, go for it. And I worked with other people who were like, okay, let's have a call and let's really dig into this and show me your spreadsheets because I want to understand it. And I think that's part of like, if you're a marketer, you should be good at figuring out who you're talking to and what they like and what their pain points are and what they're motivated by, and then therefore understanding like what levers to pull with them.
And you just get that by feeling them out, calls on with them, or
Yeah, I think just getting to know them a bit. And I think that's easily done in a startup, especially in a young startup where everyone hangs out and moans to each other and things are a little bit more informal. You can kind of get a good like gist of
yeah.
people's pain points. Yeah.
And so right now you are in a young startup.
Um, no, I would say the current business I'm in is more mature, not necessarily like age group, but just in terms of the length of time that it's been around, the number of clients, how well structured and well established it is in terms of process. So it's a much smaller company, but it feels a little bit further along in terms of its journey.
So you have just gotten this job in the midst of AI era.
Yeah.
Do you feel like the requirements of the job have changed at all?
As a result of AI?
Mm-hmm.
That is an interesting question. I would say for the past couple of years, regardless of AI, that people have been expected to do more with less and take on more roles within their role, especially in marketing, where if you're a generalist, you kind of do have your fingers in lots of pies and can work across lots of different tactics and initiatives. And so I would say AI just makes that worse, really, because now it's like you can check out some content in 20 minutes. You can write a series of emails in 10 minutes, get it out, or yeah, you can build a dashboard because HubSpot has that great AI report feature where you just type in, tell me about X and it will do that for you. So I think if anything, it just adds more pressure to people to do more things more quickly.
Are you feeling that pressure?
Not in my current role because I have really great leadership.
Yeah.
But I can understand why people, especially maybe in like content marketing, would.
Right now, as head of marketing, how many different channels are you managing?
5 or 6, I would say. Partners is a big one for us. Outbound is a really big one for us. So that's like working really closely with sales on like account-based marketing. Paid is minute because I just don't think it moves the needle in B2B, at least in the industries that I've worked in, where it's kind of very niche and it's a small number, like the total addressable market is very specific. Maybe not small, but just like very, very specific to the point where it's only going to get you so far. Conferences is something we've started working on. Organic is absolutely huge for us. Before I came in, obviously, they've done a really amazing job of the content marketing and the SEO. And so organic is kind of like a really successful but quite passive stream for us right now, which is amazing. So I can really focus on things that need a bit more of my attention, like the account-based marketing, like the partnership stuff.
So now coming into this first official head of role and everything you learned in your last role, which seemed to have had a really big impact on you, learning to be able to present to C levels who have a totally different understanding about the kind of
Mm.
marketing that you need to be doing, the path to success, or even the definition of what success is,
Right.
um, to some levels. How have you taken that into your new role, and is the context different for you there?
Mm. Yeah, I think the biggest learning that I've taken is really just how to work alongside that kind of CEO founder type role, which I've always done. And I think I've just got better at it as time
Mm,
has gone on. Just in terms of, again, like knowing what kind of information to give to them, knowing kind of what level of communication you need, what kind of level of approval or sign off you might need. Um, I think that relationship has been very smooth, and I've kind of learned a lot from previous ones, and that's very helpful. I think the biggest thing I learned in my last role was how to really partner with sales effectively. And now I have an incredible partner in crime who is the head of sales and partnership, who really gets it. We're really well aligned, really understands the value of marketing, which is not common and something I struggled with, the last role, trying to coming into something that was already working and trying to, I guess, enforce new rules or new
yeah.
processes. But that has been welcomed with open arms in this current role, and the need and the value for marketing has been really um, recognized by the head of sales and partnership, but also the CEO and everyone else in the company. So that's been great. What I have probably brought with me is the need to establish certain things really early on. So the first thing I did was a workshop with all the commercial team on messaging and positioning.
Right.
Um, and then as a follow-up, going through the buyer journey and literally mapping out every single thing anyone did along the buyer journey. And then basically just allowed everyone to have a moan first and said, what are we not doing that we should be doing? What's causing problems right now? What are the frictions? What are the obstacles? What will make you more successful? And let me figure out how to do it. And I did that within the first month, both of those
Wow.
processes. Yeah. And that's been amazing because it gave me a to-do list straight away. It was like, okay, I know exactly what to do next because this is what sales are saying is their biggest barrier. Okay, let me fix that. And
Especially,
then,
or
sorry,
no, you mean in general, what sales says is the biggest barrier, then that call gives you the to-do list.
exactly. Yeah.
Um,
And that's how I built my strategy for the next couple of quarters is basically, let's look at the buyer journey. Let's look at the data as to, where the problems actually are, where people are dropping off, um, where we think we could be getting kind of better conversion rates. And then on top of that, we add the anecdotal data from customer service or um, the sales team and have them say, I think I would be better at this if we had this video or this piece of content, or if we could automate this because it takes me too much time.
mhm.
And that was amazing because now I have a strategy for the next couple of months across the whole buyer journey. And, I think that's also a great way to get buy-in. It's kind of like, tell me what your
Yeah.
problems are and I'll fix them for you.
It's quite interesting that you say that. And I like this approach because it's really much like, let me help you guys out. Because I have heard some marketers complain of like, oh, I arrive at the company and then they think that marketing is the salesperson order taker.
Hmm.
Um, and so somehow you've come in and like owned and said, okay, this is what they're going to think. And now I'm going to actually come in with that angle, but you're not obviously not your order. You're going to take in everything and then choose which one is highest priority.
Right.
Um, what are you getting any kinds of ideas from sales? Like, hey, we should do this. Hey, we should do this. That maybe isn't going to be a priority for one reason or another. And like, how do you approach that?
Yes, and I expected that. And that's why we did it on a big Miro board with lots of post-it notes, and everyone was welcome to share what they wanted. And I made it very clear. So I spent 5 minutes at the start of that workshop just saying very clearly, like, this is why I'm doing it. This is how it's going to help you. This is how it's going to help me. And this is what we're going to do as a result. And I made it very clear that it was time for everyone just to share and brainstorm. And then from that, I'll make the call on what I think is going to
Yeah.
move the needle. And I think you just have to be a bit bold and brave just to say, this is actually my decision, but I really want your feedback on what that could look like. But yeah, I mean, salespeople are always going to have ideas on what they think will move the needle or not. And really, like, it's never a bad idea. It's just as marketers, we have the data and the experience to know like what's going to be worthwhile or not.
Yeah. Do you use any kind of prioritization frameworks?
No.
Most people don't. I just always
My boss just keeps saying, just pick 2 things and just do 2 things really well. That's all I want you to do. So thank you. I will.
Yeah. That's a really good way of looking at it. Do you guys have any sort of OKR system or goal setting system at the company?
That is going to happen for me over the next week or so. Is figuring
Oh,
out
really?
my big OKR, my big KPIs. I've kind of established when I was building that strategy, I kind of gave myself like 3 buckets of things I want to move the needle on. And then we'll come up with something based on that. But yeah, I mean, every head of commercial has like very clear KPIs, and we have very clear revenue goals. So.
Yeah. Awesome. I think this is a good moment to wrap this up. This has been a really good chat. I'm really excited for you in your new role. It sounds like you're really taking off quite fast, like already having this whole workshop done just within the first month. And it's a new industry for you as well, right? Yeah. Bravo.
Thank you. It's fun.
It's nice to see marketers be able to move that fast.
Yeah.
So yeah. Congratulations and thanks for joining me today.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, and for those listening, if you enjoyed this, please reach out to Natalie. Say hi. She's very friendly on LinkedIn. And give this episode a like. Please let me know that you watched it, and we will see you next time.